What is going on, guys? We are back with episode 5. We are really looking forward to today. We're going to be talking about how courage can really just impact others. It's not just a selfish inward, like, oh, I want to pursue being courageous so I can just impact myself and I can grow, but it's really just outward and living on mission through being courageous. And so we have a really cool episode in store. We're going to be really chill today. And so Joseph, last time we ended with a little teaser of what Joseph had to do and how he had to make a courageous decision. And so do you want to walk us through how that went down and just all of that?
Yeah, dude, I asked President Castlin, the legend himself, if he would be a guest on the podcast, and he said yeah. He even gave us an idea of what he wanted to talk about. Yeah. He was pretty excited about it, and so that was pretty cool just to see it pay off immediately, where he was like, yeah, dude, of course. But even in that, I had the pressure and the accountability of you and all the listeners, knowing I had the opportunity to ask him. And even when I was there, I came up with a couple excuses. There was 3 or 4 excuses running through my mind, all right, he's so busy, Joseph, he's never going to want to do that, all that stuff. And it honestly made me take a step back and, question it. And so I think that could be something we talk about in the future is, what goes through your mind in that time?
Yeah.
And I think excuses is a big one because,
definitely,
at least for me, it's pretty easy for me to come up with some pretty convincing excuses. And so I almost convinced myself out of it, even with the accountability and the podcast. I keep telling people that I tell the podcast about and whatnot. I was like, whenever I encounter something that I recognize that it's an opportunity to be courageous, I can never not choose it. Because, the guy that freaking started the Courageous podcast can't not make the courageous decision.
True.
And so, really, it's a curse, this podcast. No, I'm just kidding. It's amazing. But, guys, needless to say, today is going to be super chill. We're just chilling, going to be super conversational. Obviously, we got some stuff we want to talk about, and we want to know what you think about it. But we just want to be pretty interactive. Obviously, you can't talk back to us right now. So, DM us. We have some cool stuff. You guys are DMing us how you're making courageous decisions, how the podcast is kind of changing and recreating your thought process. And that is super encouraging to us. But yeah, we actually only got a couple hours of sleep last night. We were playing Warzone.
A little too
late. We only got a couple hours of sleep. So we're just chilling today. We're hanging out. We're super low-key. So sit back. Maybe pause the episode or pause the podcast if you're listening to it. Grab something to eat. Grab a little snack. Get comfy. We're just hanging out today.
Yeah, for sure. So let's hop right in. We are talking about what it means to be just courageous and confident in that, of just being wow, it ties back to just not caring what people think, because a lot of times, say in the moment of your thing, where you went and talked to Kazan, you could have made the excuse of oh, I'm scared of what people might think if I go talk to him, do different stuff. And a lot of times, just living in a world where we are constantly thinking of oh, what does she think of me? What does he think of me? Am I doing this right to look appealing, not even just physically appealing, but just as a person appealing to people. And to an extent, yes, we want to represent Christ and be appealing in that way. That's just natural though, as long as we're being faithful and just loving on people. But then there's this other side of okay, well, even when I'm doing that, I just kind of shrivel up, and it's I think way too much about what he thinks of me. If I go do this, or it's well, do I look good? It's just we don't need to care about what people think about us, because when we're living in that constant fear of oh, I don't really, I don't know if I'm meeting their standards or getting up to their expectations. So it's that doesn't matter, because diving into the word a little bit in Genesis, right off the bat, God talks about how we are made in His own image. And so it's if everyone's made in the image of God, why should we be afraid to do anything or be afraid
because
to
of the
be
thoughts
ourselves?
of other people?
Yeah. It's like that's another broken person. You know, it's like I'm broken, you're broken.
Come on, bro.
We don't have to like, you know, it's like we're literally made in the same image.
Yeah.
There's nothing to like for me to worry about in confidence, and there's nothing for you to worry about.
Yeah. I think it's cool too how that confidence and not caring what people think, and kind of the perspective shift of what motivates you or what makes you, what causes you to make decisions. Encourage is a factor in that and a reason you make a certain decision. But even talking about that and thinking about focusing on others, right? This podcast today is talking about how courage can impact and transform and recreate the lives of other people. And so just because of our decisions and how we live. And it reminds me of, actually, we didn't talk about this, but a time when I was in like middle school. I think I talked about how I always got nervous on Sunday nights in a previous episode.
Sunday Scaries.
Yeah, Sunday Scaries I talked about. But the first day of school one year, I was at middle school, 6th grade, so I was nervous about going to 6th grade. And my dad was like, "Hey, buddy, what I want you to do is find someone." Hey, sport. Good old sport. He was like, "Find someone that's like more nervous than you. Or even if they're not, just find someone that you can love on and care on. Like you've been at this school district for a couple years. Like you know people.
He's a cool guy.
I wish. But he was like, find someone who's more nervous than you and kind of love on them, hang out with them, put your arm around them and help them throughout the day." And he was like, "I promise you will be less nervous going throughout the day." And I was like, all right, I can do that. But even before I found someone, just thinking about loving someone before I cared about my own thoughts made me less nervous.
Yeah,
It dropped my heart rate immediately. And I think that's a cool aspect in finding the confidence to make a courageous decision. Is if you're looking for a reason to make a courageous decision, this is it. You can impact someone else's life, even if it's just a day. Like they're happier today because you put your arm around them or you made a courageous decision that influenced them to make one, or just your decision alone impacted them. It's cool to just put others above yourself.
Definitely. And just like, if we can courageously just love people, like what your dad was saying, that's a great example of like, okay, well, I'm taking it less about, like, because ultimately when we're living in a fear of what people think of us, that's actually selfish. We're thinking way too much about what different people think about us when honestly they're probably not thinking about us as much as we are. You know, It's like, oh, is he thinking am I wearing a cool outfit? Well, personally, he's probably not. You know, he doesn't care. You know, it's like people don't actually care about those little things that we are like putting in our head as much. And so that's actually a little way that we can be selfish in our own heart. It's like, okay, well, I'm thinking way too much about what people think of me. Let me actually just go out and love people, because in that comes the confidence.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if we can go out and just love people courageously and make these courageous decisions that we're talking about and just go out and do it, it's like, what do we have to fear when God's literally told us that's what we're called to do, you know?
Yeah. Dude, that curtain over there is making some sketch noises.
I just heard it. I don't know what.
I don't know if someone's yanking on it, but yeah. That's cool. So kind of what we were talking about too is the different types of how a courageous decision can impact others, right? We talked about the first way of how the perspective shift. Another way is how we can impact others by influencing them to make a courageous decision. And we talked about in a previous episodes how a courageous decision can benefit your life. And if you haven't listened to them, go back and check them out. They're real short, only 20 minutes, if that. So quick listens. And the last one is just your courageous decision influences or like impacts them based on what happens because of your decision. And a little bit of a story with that, like my family, we lived in Cleveland, Ohio for a good bit. And when we moved from Cleveland to Omaha, Nebraska.
You moved to Omaha or to L.A.? Because you're rocking a...
Dude, I'm rocking... It's a LeBron jersey, okay?
Okay.
I like my boy Bron. me and Braun go way back. The streets of Cleveland raised us.
So you moved to Omaha.
So
the small town of Omaha, where Braun has never been.
Come on, dude. LeBron and I was talking to him earlier today about the podcast. No, I'm just kidding. But basically, when my family moved from Cleveland to Omaha, I was going into middle school, and I was, like, pretty nervous, or just, like, wasn't a fan of moving.
Yeah.
I was like, guys, life is good here. We got family, friends. I was like, everything we need for a good life is here in Cleveland. But they just felt God leading them to Omaha. And so that's what we did. We moved to Omaha, and I was, like, really just pissed. I was like, gosh, like, this sucks.
Yeah.
I don't even know where Omaha is. When I was in 4th grade, a girl moved to my school from Omaha, and I thought she was from another country. She was like, yeah, I moved here from Omaha, Nebraska. I was like, what language do they speak there? Like, I'd never even heard of that freaking place. And so, but in that decision, they were being courageous. They were obviously afraid. They didn't know what was to come through that decision. They didn't know if it was best for our family or not, but they felt like God was calling us to Omaha. And because of that decision, like, a lot of my life and my sister's life is different.
Yeah. And your parents, probably.
Oh,
honestly,
yeah.
Big time.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But what's cool there is because of their courageous decision, my life is different. And in a lot of good ways. Omaha was awesome. And it kind of shaped me through, like, the middle school and high school years. And I'm obviously not everything was perfect because we moved there. But even in the bad stuff, like, my life is transformed and shaped in a certain way because of their courageous decision.
And all the people that you, Emma, your mom, your dad, have come in contact with in Omaha, or just with that transition, it's like, wow, that's so many more people that y'all impacted as a family, as your parents' decisions to move. They've probably impacted people from moving out there and stuff like that. And so it really is just like, there's such a ripple effect that we never even see because of one courageous decision now. I mean, it could be something we're making now that impacts 30 years from now, or it could be something very direct where it's like, okay, well, I made a decision and it impacts me right then, or impacts others right then. And so kind of moving into another story, honestly, is kind of this podcast is our way of wanting to impact others.
Yeah.
And so we actually got a really cool, Joseph had talked about his, what episode was it? Was it episode 4 where you talked about your decision with school?
I think it's kind of bled into
just throughout, yeah. And so we actually got this DM from a guy who was like, wow, that actually helped me. That impacted me do the same kind of decision. I was really not sure where I wanted to do school, was kind of fearful of what to do, and it was just like, wow, I just made the courageous decision to pick where I thought would be best. And so it's really neat to see how we're already, even just 4 episodes now, 5, being able to impact us. And that's really just because of God blessing this podcast and blessing us and using our courageousness, to do something cool and to do something big for His kingdom. And so it's really cool just how this podcast in and of itself can, hopefully, our prayer and our vision is to just impact people. Yeah. Allow people to become more courageous, allow people to just love more and more and just be bold about their faith. And so moving to that, what is one way that you have, through this podcast, other than that one example, seen it impact somebody already through the courageous decision that we made to, like, hey, start this? It wasn't easy. We actually, quick backstory, the bracelets that we've talked about a couple times, those were ordered over a year ago, and, like, we had this idea over a year ago, and it was just like, yeah, COVID happened, but it was just like a little bit of apathy and, like, a lack of courage to just be like, let's run after this. And it took us a while. It took us almost a year or it probably did, of just like, okay, well, we have this idea, now let's actually execute it and like be courageous, because it's not easy. It's not the easiest thing to get behind 2 cameras and talk, I mean, there's a lot that could go wrong. We could look weird, we could make a mistake, but in that, we're being courageous and just being like, we'll come behind a camera and we'll talk You know,
we definitely
or a
look weird. Well, we definitely look weird, bro.
A jersey. I'm just kidding.
But to answer your question about like the influence of other people making courageous decisions, I don't really know. Like, some people have reached out and DM'd us, like you said, that one example, which is super cool. And it honestly, like, keeps us going in a way. It lets us know, like, people are listening. It's, like, making a difference. Like, people are actually not only listening, but, like, thinking about what we're saying, which is cool. But just the encouragement, honestly, that we were saying even last episode, I mean, personally, I didn't feel like it was a life-changing episode. Like, I felt good about it, but it wasn't, like, crazy. Like, send it to all your friends because they're going to cry by the end of it. Like, but you were saying, I was saying, and our friend Ryan, who films all this stuff for us, was saying, like, we got a lot of texts,
DMs, just feedback of just, like, oh, wow, that's, like, that was awesome. You know, that impacted me in this way, and just stuff like that. And that means a lot to us personally. I mean, I can probably speak for both of us. It's just like, man, that really fuels this, because we made this courageous decision, you know, a couple months ago. Now actually seeing it play out and be like, okay, well, it's actually impacting, or at least like touching people a little bit in a way that they'll take the time to text us, DM us, or speak to us. I got a phone call, and just stuff like that. Of like, wow, it's truly impacting people because of a courageous decision that we made, you know, a couple months ago.
I mean, my mom sends a nice text.
You
can always count on Mom to send you nice text.
Always.
She even started with, "I know I'm your mom, but..."
I know I'm a little biased. She said something about being biased.
I know I'm a little biased, and I love you and Buddy, but yeah, it was really cool. And thank you guys for reaching out. But the cool part about that, and I want to keep challenging you guys, and as you listen and as you're kind of putting this into play and making courageous decisions, like, we want to hear about them.
Yeah.
Whether it's super dumb, little, itty-bitty stuff, like, that you're like, I was a little afraid in that, and I'm glad I made the decision despite the fear. Like, we want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Let us know. Or if it's something big, like, I don't know, I'm getting married because of this Thursday. Like, I don't know.
Just shoot us a DM, honestly. Like, we'll go through that. We'd love to respond. We'd love to even share, like, the DM today. Like, we want to make this less about us sitting here and just preaching, so to speak.
Yeah. Of
just, like, throwing stuff at y'all, throwing stuff. We just want to, I mean, honestly, which Joseph's going to get into in a second, but we want to make it very conversational in a way where we just have a relationship. Because that's what our whole idea is, recreating this community, this culture. You can't have a culture where two people sit up here just talking the whole time. It's like, no, we're right there with y'all. We want to, you know, hang out. DM us to hang out. Let's go grab coffee, you know. DM us to talk about stuff. If you're further away, DM us, let's FaceTime. And let's just have a conversation. We want to create relationships with the people who are listening. If we already haven't, I know a lot of our, you know, people listening we're like close friends with. And so our one thing also is we kind of want to challenge people, and I'm going to speak to the camera, less of Joseph right here, or to the mic, but we want to challenge y'all with, think of something right now. I mean, you don't have to pause this, but just over the next, you know, if you listen to this on Monday afternoon, over that next evening or afternoon, just think of a time where you have the ability within the near future to be courageous. What is something that you know, have coming up, and just think about that and kind of tell yourself, call someone to keep you accountable, but we want to really allow this to become a way for people to, while they're having that, you know, courageous decision potential. It's like, okay, well, I'm senior year, I have to pick a college soon. Or it's like, you know, you're in this season where you have to pick a job soon. It's just like, how can I be courageous? Or even just micro level of like day-to-day courageousness. And so it could be something little. And so we want you to pick that, and we want to remind you to be confident in that. You know, you are who you are. You are made in the image of God, as Genesis 1:27 says. And so we want you to just go out and live courageously because of that. There is no need to live in fear solely because Christ has told us, hey, you were made in my image. You know, go out, make disciples of all nations, love people abundantly, live courageously.
Yeah.
So.
I think that's really cool. I mean, we got I mean, not everyone can just hit us up and go get coffee, because we were looking at the thing the other day. We now got listeners in the UK and Mexico and India, a lot more countries. And so that's the cool thing too. We know there's people in all different walks of life making courageous decisions in all different types of way. Whether you're a CEO of a Fortune 500 company and you're trying to make a decision and you're afraid and you make a courageous one based off this podcast, sweet, we want to hear about it. Or if you're a freshman in high school and you're nervous about asking the girl to go to homecoming, like, sweet, we want to hear about it.
Yeah.
And so that's a cool thing with that. But yeah, guys, the cool thing about this episode, it probably means the most to me. I don't know, because that's how I want to live my life. The only reason I want to be on this earth is to love people differently, inspire them to love others in a way, and change how they think and live. So that they just know the will of God, but also they just can live a life with purpose, and they just are filled up by that, not by their accomplishments or whatever they want to fill themselves up with.
Yeah.
And so that's what it matters a lot to me, is the whole purpose of this podcast is to recreate how people think in a way that helps them live boldly. And that they can do that for others in their community. And so that's why this episode means a lot to me, and I probably speak for Buddy too. We kind of align a lot on that and kind of our purpose in life a little bit with that. But guys, thank you so much for listening to episode 5 of the 5 Seconds of Courage podcast. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram. Check out our website at 5secondsofcourage.com. Yeah, you can listen again on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can watch on YouTube. So we'll see you guys.
honestly, just stay tuned. We have episodes coming out every Monday at 12, and we are going to start having guests on here. I think we're gonna definitely get President Caslin, the president of USC, but we also have some other really cool guests that we are talking to, trying to line up some just times to record with them and get them on here. Because we do want to make this relationally, and we want you to hear from other people. Some people out there have some really cool stories that can really impact people's life, and so we want you to hear that. And so that's really all we got.
Yeah, dude, that's it. We're excited to have some people on with some really cool stories and how courage changed their life.
And how it changed other people's life, how they saw their courage and their courageousness transform and change other people's lives.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. Well, we'll see you guys next week.